I received today a great question on Twitter regarding flying monkeys, how we deal with them, and how we establish healthy boundaries quickly. I thought I'd run you through the logic, the thinking behind it, to help reframe how we think, and also make a suggestion about one generally effective way of interacting with these people and talking and being firm whilst being kind. This might be helpful for you, and if you think it is, and if you would like to support my work and the channel, then all you have to do is like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment, and also watch the video until the end. Now, if you're ready, let's jump in. So, the question was, when it comes to a narc's minions, flying monkeys, etc., do we deal with them in the same manner with the same tactics as narcissists? My response to this was simply saying, well, it depends. Do you find their behavior to be healthy for you or toxic? The idea here is simply, if you find it's healthy, which it probably isn't, then that's that. If you find it's toxic, then what are you going to do about it? Here I have a metaphor, which is imagine, and I've spoken about this in I think a few other videos, imagine your life is like a pond, an ecosystem, and somebody else is feeding their pond into yours. There's a water connection, but they're polluting yours. If you let the pollution come in, you're polluting yours. We can argue about whatever we want. The end result is your pond is getting polluted. And your goldfish die, your fireflies die, your water lilies die. You can argue why it was getting polluted. The end result is your pond is dead. Now, if you block off this connection, but they try feeding in through other ponds or other streams, it's quite simple. Either toxicity enters your ecosystem, in which case it pollutes your ecosystem, or toxicity doesn't. It's up to you to decide what you block off and how much toxicity you can actually tolerate. The more comes in, the more depolluting you have to do, the sooner you stop it, the less work you have to do, and if you have a huge inflow of pollution, then you have a huge amount of work to try to depollute it eventually before everything dies. This is the thinking behind it. The flying monkeys, taken individually, might be polluting your ecosystem. I suggest dealing with them individually, not attacking people. When people attack people, that's usually a sign of toxicity. One of the most toxic ideas is to think you've got good people and bad people are fair game, and good people are capable of no wrong. This is one way that toxic people manipulate others to be able to make them attack others and themselves stay out of blame, because they will say, well, if you criticize me, that means you think I'm a bad person. If you don't think I'm a bad person, I'm a good person, so don't criticize me, but that person over there is a bad person, so why don't you direct your anger and frustration at them instead of at me, because I'm a good person. And if you attack a good person, that makes you a bad person. There's some kind of bizarre, convoluted logic like that. Fake logic, toxic logic. So, if someone is polluting your ecosystem, they're polluting it. There's no debate about it. What are you going to do about it? The longer we wait, the harder it is. In this case, this person, and I'm not mentioning you by name because I didn't ask if I could mention you by name, so I think it would be unfair to do that. So this person was saying, well, they're in-laws, so I can't go complete no contact yet because they're young kids. I've got no communication with the mother-in-law, but the father-in-law seems to be doing her bidding now. It gives the narcissist ammunition if suddenly I stop talking to the father-in-law too, if he hasn't done anything hideous yet, like she did. I'm jumping back in here quickly. As you can see, the lighting has changed. I'm editing the video. I'm realizing I want to add a few extra elements, and I'm struggling with daylight lighting conditions, so please forgive that. Jump into the main point here. In this case, the person said, I'm going to give the narcissist ammunition with the father-in-law if he hasn't done anything hideous yet. This implies that we need to have a reason to put down boundaries. We don't. We don't need a reason. We don't need to be rational. We don't need to be quote-unquote fair, which is a terrible word. I'll do another video about how fair is unbelievably toxic. If we don't want to talk to someone, we don't have to talk to someone. We don't have to justify it. It's easy enough to say, I don't want to. I'm sorry, I don't want to. We'll run through some reasons why I'm sorry is very helpful later in this video, but simply, I'm sorry, I don't want to, and that's that. We don't need to go any further. Okay, back to the video. My point here is simply, when someone has behavior that doesn't work, we either let it pass, or we say something about it and do something about it. What's really important here is that The different ways to address this. There's the completely hysterical manic way where we attack someone that makes us look unhinged and probably means that we're acting in an unhinged way. When people attack other people for themselves, for the people, that's not healthy. That's a sign that something's not really working correctly. It can be understandable, justifiable, but happy people don't do that. People in a good place don't do that. Instead, this is what I suggest doing. Actually, before we say anything, we want to sort of take a snapshot of the situation. I suggest writing it down. Being factual, first of all, about what happened, how we felt, and then I suggest finding the most charitable explanation possible. Remember, when we look at other people's behaviors, we can either have the view that is the most charitable one possible, or we can have the worst explanation possible. And there's something between the two, most charitable and the worst. Narcissists will always focus on the worst. And of course, you can't prove that it's not the case, so that's one of the mind games they play. But if we start with the most charitable, that's really kind of us. So what we do here is we say something like, I need to talk to you about these events, or what happened. You might want to add, I'm really sorry. Sorry is good, because when you say I'm sorry, it's difficult to be attacked. Now, I know a lot of North Americans get very upset when people suggest that you say you're sorry. Whatever reason you have to be upset, you have your reasons. I observe this is an effective technique. If you want to deprive yourself of an effective technique, deprive yourself of the effective technique. I'm not telling you to use it. I'm telling you it's effective. You have the choice of using it or not using it. Other people will find it helpful. They have every right to know it exists, and I have every right to share it with people and say, this is an effective technique. And then people make up their own mind. Before I go any further, by the way, like I mentioned in a previous video, I'm not giving advice. I never give advice. If you find it helpful, that's great. That means that you processed my thoughts and my ideas, and you took out what was helpful. I don't know better than you. I don't tell you what to do. You're the one with skin in the game in your life, not me. Anyone else who gives advice is playing with your life. It's like going to the casino with your credit card and gambling. I would be very wary of anyone giving advice. I'm not saying they've got bad intentions, but I'm not saying they've got good intentions. And many people who give advice do not have good intentions. So the easiest thing to do when people give advice is listen, think, understand the logic, and then make up your own mind and take full responsibility. Don't delegate responsibility. Narcissists are the people who want you to delegate responsibility to others because that gives them power over you. Okay? Now that this is said, I'm sorry, this happened. And then you say, probably it's because, and you give the most charitable explanation possible. Probably, possibly, you were having a bad day. You were tired. Let's be honest, things are a bit awkward because I'm divorcing your son and I don't know what your son said about me. And possibly some of it is true, and probably not all of it is true. And possibly this puts you in a really uncomfortable situation. And possibly you're not really sure who you're dealing with when you're talking to me. I get it. I get it. You want them to be able to go, wow, you're giving me an easy way out. So they can go, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I was thinking. I mean, you know, it's, yeah, that sounds good. I like your explanation. I'm going with that one. So you want to get to this stage. First of all, open up the conversation where they don't get defensive, and then you give them the most charitable explanation possible. You don't have to believe it. The goal of this is to lower their defenses, so they're not being defensive, and you're not attacking them. Never attack them, because that's just the toxic mindset. They're going accusing and pointing fingers and calling names. Anyone who does this is playing narcissist games, whether they realize it or not. Calling, pointing fingers, all of those things. Jump in again quickly. Also remember, if you attack them, you're opening yourself to being criticized for attacking them. If you're stating things factually, you're stating things factually. If you describe a situation, people can disagree. But if you're attacking someone, they can criticize you for attacking the person. Much safer, just describe, don't attack. So, step 1 is open up the field so it's easy to talk. I'm sorry. Step 2, charitable explanation. step 3, once they sort of nod and so on, step 3 is going, this didn't work for me. I'm informing you it didn't work for me. I can explain why, but that's irrelevant. I'm telling you, this is the information, it didn't work for me. You spoke to me with this tone of voice. I'm giving you the most charitable explanation possible. It's an excuse. And now I'm telling you it didn't work for me. And I'm telling you, I don't want this to happen again. Now that you know this, you can make sure it doesn't happen again, or you can make it happen again. And we don't really go that far when you talk to them, but this is a message we give them. You understand. I've understood where you come from. I've been very charitable. I'm informing you this doesn't work for me. So I think you understand what you need to do. We don't say it with a threat, but we simply go something like, this didn't work for me. I trust that it's not going to happen again. I'd really appreciate if it didn't happen again. I understand things can be complicated and difficult. It'd be really nice if it didn't happen again. Behind there's a hint of a threat. You need to be 100% clear with what the threat is. You don't have to verbalize it. It's better if you don't verbalize it. But you need to know what happens. What might happen is if the person talks to you in an aggressive way, to say, I understand, under a lot of stress, all of those things, blah, blah, blah. I don't appreciate when people talk to me in an aggressive way. I need to let you know so you can do what is necessary so it doesn't happen again. Now, are we good? I'd like to move on and I don't want to have this conversation another time. If it happens again, we can stop and go, do you remember that conversation we had? Yeah? What's happening now? And if it keeps going on, we don't have to assume that it's a mistake. It might be exactly what they want. Then if it's exactly what they want, then we can play sort of the FBI negotiation techniques and go, we had this conversation. My understanding was that it wouldn't happen again. It's just happened again. What am I supposed to do? And if there's something about the children, the grandchildren, my understanding is that you'd like to continue seeing the grandchildren. How do you want this to be happening if you're talking to me this way? Leave it at that. No overt threat. Simply very clear that, yeah, I can cut things off. I can make things unnecessarily complicated if you choose. These are the consequences for your actions. You always have to be willing to walk away. In any healthy relationship, you're willing to walk away because otherwise you're giving power to the other person if they're not being healthy. And I think this is one of the best ways to do it. I think giving one warning makes sense. We don't have to justify the warning. We don't have to argue the warning. It's simply, these are facts. What you did, how I felt, and in the future, it'd be a good idea that it doesn't happen again. In principle, that's enough. Anyone's boundaries should be enough. I didn't like it. Okay. If they insist on doing it, then you've got different goals. But if they insist on doing it, you don't want them around anyway. Then you have to deal with reality. If you can put down a boundary this way and stick to it, that's the important thing, stick to it, then it's easier to have your boundaries be respected and avoid the pollution. This person was saying that with a narcissist before, she wasn't able to put down boundaries and she let things slide. That's the thing, things slide. The longer you wait, the harder it is. It's much easier the first time someone says something or does something to go, wait a minute, we need to talk about this.